Well, the plan of action is to start the day with a trip to the tip. Now, last time I took you to the tip, one of you, who shall remain nameless, complained that I didn't show you inside the tip. Now, I have my reasons for that. I sometimes feel that it's wrong to film people at their place of work. Sometimes. And the tip is very well organised, but of course there's things going on there that, you know, maybe people would be embarrassed to be filmed showing what they're throwing away. But, you know, we'll give it a go. Oh, hello, traffic coming. See, that there tells me that I've got to give way to anything coming the other way, and this particular bit of road, the way you know there's something coming the other way is you see the reflection in the windows of the lady's hairdresser. And this is not the weather that the forecast told us we were going to get. According to the forecast I looked at, it was supposed to be raining. Well, clearly it isn't. Right, well, sit back and enjoy the ride. It's a short ride to the tip, in real terms. You know, we're not crossing Europe. It's about, I don't know, what is it, 10 minutes? For all that wonderful colza to make cooking oil. I don't know what else they use it for. I guess there's other uses besides cooking oil. But it's certainly a lucrative crop for the farmers here. You see a lot of it. Normally I turn left here to go towards Villiers, where I've got a friend who lives. But today we're going to plunge straight along this lovely straight road. It is straight, isn't it? But as you can see, it undulates a little bit. First place we come to along this road is Paulnay. Yeah, Paulnay deserves a brief visit. There's a beautiful, very simple church there. I don't know what you lot will watch first thing in the morning on YouTube. Do any of you watch a chap called Matt Whitman? Matt is, well, certainly his persona that we see on YouTube, very lovely sort of guy. He normally titles his videos as Protestant Visit Catholic Cathedral or Protestant Visit Orthodox Church, whatever. I find his presentation to be very, very gentle and quite pleasant to watch. So if you've never watched him, maybe have a little look, and that might make sense of what I think I'm going to do on the way back when I come through Paulnay, because there's a very simple, very delightful little church there. That's the garage where this car came from, and it's got to go back in there for its service. This is something I don't like about modern cars. The most important thing with the service is resetting it on the computer. You know, convincing what we might think of as the speedometer that it's been serviced. Because you don't have to be that clever to change the oil, and you've got to be clever to check the spark plugs on this because it's a diesel. There's the little church. Yes, I think on the way back we'll have a little nose in there. So if you want to skip the bit of me going to the tip, feel free. Fast forward about sort of 10 minutes and have a look at the church. This will be a really lovely road to ride a motorbike along. Try it about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you'll get bugs in your teeth. This time in the morning it's still a little bit chilly and the bugs haven't started flying about. Nice to see all the leaves coming in the trees. One of the things that I find to be a great contrast to my former life, if you will, is the amount of traffic. This is about as much traffic as you're likely to see on this road. The only time you see more is if there's a tractor and trailer trundling along at 25 kilometres an hour, then you'll see several cars stacked up behind it. But, you know, normally these roads are nice and empty. Now, if you think back to Leon Sea and Benfleet and places like that, I would be driving on a road called the A13, and goodness, the volume of traffic that runs up and down that road. going into Mézières-en-Brenne. There's some interesting building work going on in this building on the right. It's obviously being changed from being an old barn into being a nice new house. It's got all of the signs up saying that a proper professional builder is doing the job. That'll be something to see when it's done, I think. Now normally I'd run along to the corner at the end, but as we've got the camera running, we'll go what I think is the pretty way. Actually, everything here is pretty. I just think that's just a pretty sort of little view there. People, they make an effort. They've got plants and flowers and things. They make it all beautiful. On the right is what we might call the fire station, the Centre de Secours. It's not exactly a fire station as many of you would know it. It's where les pompiers keep their equipment. Look at that, a little mini. Let's pop you over there. The first bit we're going to go to is we're going to go and dump some builder's rubble. Reverse round the digger. Oh, throw the camera on the floor. They normally park it a little bit neater than that, but there we are. Right, won't be a minute. that didn't take too long. There's nothing worth pinching. Bins for your wine bottles. Plastique, mais plastique comme ça.
Ça, on peut le mettre dans les sacs jaunes, sauf ça. Ça, je vais le mettre en soulier, ça en soulier. Et ça, à la rigueur, la prochaine fois que vous avez des choses comme ça, vous avez donc le merlot, le truc vert, ce sera dans la case bétonnée. Mais c'est pas grave, je le prends.
Merci. Ça,
on comprend.
Right, well that wasn't too bad, was it? What I like here, it is very well organised. The chap who was in charge today, he's a nice guy. Actually, I say that they're all nice guys here. But he was in the French army, and I've had one or two long conversations with him. He, during his army service, served in various places where you might say, well, there wasn't a war. And yeah, you might say that. But of course, an awful lot of time spent by soldiers is spent on peacekeeping missions. So it's not a war, no one gets any medals for it, but people get killed, and they're nasty because quite often you're peacekeeping by protecting a particular facility, when around you there's all manner of hell going on that the politicians won't let you get involved in. So yeah, he's had an interesting life. did tell me where he was. A lot of the places were the former French colonies in Africa, where various new political regimes are fighting against various alternative governments, and in effect civil wars, which are always, civil war is a funny phrase, isn't it? Because there's nothing civil about war, but civil wars tend to be messier. So yeah, he has an interesting background, and yeah, we get on all right. Right, the building on the left is the old mill. As you can see, it sits on the river, so it was a water-powered mill when it was originally built. So that's sort of Mézières-en-Brenne. Now let's run back to Paulnay, and we will spend just a little while wandering about in the church there. Just so I'm going to do a Matt Whitman. Only Matt normally gets a priest or a minister or somebody to explain the church to him, and I rather doubt that there'll be a priest in there at the time of day that we're going to arrive. So we'll have a look, see what we think. One of the awful parts of history in this part of the world is what is loosely termed the wars of religion. And I really ought to check my dates, but I think it's sort of the 16th century, 15th, 16th century. Various political leaders, different dukes and kings and such likes, they basically were fighting for control of this area, and not just this area, most of Europe, and very often they cloaked it behind a religious theme. So you had people who said that they were Roman Catholic, and you had people who said they were assorted different Protestant type religions. We might think of Calvin, or of course a lot of you will think of Martin Luther. We might think of Jan Hus, the Hussite Wars or Hussite Wars, depending what language you're going to speak in. And they were nasty. A duke would point at a crowd of peasants and tell his own peasants that they're Catholics or they're Huguenot, whichever, depending what side you're on, and they would cheerfully massacre each other and burn places down. And one of the features that the Huguenot very often did, they would go into the churches and they would cause damage. They would accuse Catholics of being idolaters. That's a long subject, maybe for another day. So a lot of these churches had the statues of the saints smashed up, or some of the very Catholic sort of images destroyed and desecrated. The church that we're going to go into, some of it is 12th century. You know, what are we now? We're 21st century, so 900 years old. But we will see a couple of things outside that might be older. Right, let's slow down and think about where I'm going to park. I know where I'm going to park. I'm going to park in front of the church. Cédez le passage. Give way. I don't know the gentleman on the bicycle, but my regular passenger always calls him Pappy, which, if I understand these things, is not a term of abuse, but yeah, he's sort of grandfather to everybody. And my friend Nicole tells me that he's 90 something or another. I have no reason to doubt that, but he still plots about on his bicycle, which is rather nice. Now, first thing that I wanted to show you are these stone coffins, a circuit. How old they are? No idea, but dug up during various restoration works. We'll just have a little look. This is outside the church. There's an information board that tells us when the next services are going to be. And what did I say today was the 24th of April, so next Sunday, the 4th Sunday of Easter, there won't be a service here. Got a choice of Châtillon or Besançon or 9:30 at Vendeuve. Yeah. There's a 7th of May. We've got a service in Azay-le-Ferron. Anyway, that's that. Now, what I was hoping, I can't remember the name of this church, and I was hoping that there would be a board that would just remind me of that. Perhaps it's inside. Right, all the Catholic ladies amongst you, will you please put your head coverings on now? Gentlemen, take your hats off. In many ways, it's a very, very simple church. And as we come into it, the first thing that we see is the baptismal font. And fortunately we see an information board that tells us that this is the Église Sainte Etienne de Paulnay, the Church of St Stephen. And there's a little bit of information about some of the things that have been found during restoration works. And a little history of some of the stained glass. Yeah. And for good measure, there's another baptismal font. And now used for storing chairs. Of course, this being a Roman Catholic church, the confessional box, the priest sits in there with his purple stole, and the penitent sinner comes and sits and confesses his sins, her sins, to the priest. By the look of that particular confessional, it doesn't get used exactly very often. Most people that follow that tradition here will go to the presbytery in Mézières. They'll see a priest on a Saturday afternoon. And of course, being a Catholic church, we have statues. Sainte Therese of Lisieux. She's known normally as the Little Flower. And of course we have Stations of the Cross. And these are actually fairly modern iterations of Stations of the Cross. And of course we've got a statue of Saint Joan, Joan of Arc, who was executed in Rouen in Normandy. She was tied to a stake and burnt to death, as people sometimes did. And of course there's a statue of the Blessed Virgin Mary, Notre Dame de Lourdes, and a place for people where you can light and leave votive candles. And a plaque commemorating the children who died for France between 1914 and 1918. And the crucifix of someone who died for all of us, not just for France. Then we have a statue of St Stephen, and in his hand he's got some stones, just in case you weren't too sure who St Stephen was. Some people will call him the proto-martyr, the first one killed. and a pulpit. They don't use the pulpit anymore. But quite a wonderful piece of carpentry. And just in case any of you have lost anything, there's a statue there of St Anthony of Padua, the patron saint of lost things. And a statue of Saint Joseph. Now, as we approach, we might call this the choir, or we might call it the chancel. But wonderful, again, wonderful carpentry. And you can imagine monks or nuns or choristers sitting here. Now, one of the things that is a nice feature of what we might call choir stalls is there's parts in the service where you can end up standing up for a very long time. So what happens is the seat folds up like so, and you've got a little bum rest. Now, I stand to be corrected on this, but I understand that's sometimes referred to as a misericorde. Because if you're standing here singing Gregorian chant in Latin for several hours, you might be rather pleased to be able to just rest your haunches for a while on this little seat. And then that flips down and you can sit on it. For those of you that don't go into Catholic churches on a regular basis, the lit lamp there, and it looks like an electric lamp, but in most churches it will be a candle. That signifies that within the tabernacle is what we would call reserved host or reserved sacrament. The Roman Catholics and, Anglo-Catholics believe that at the consecration, the wafers, the host, is transformed into the body of Christ. And within that tabernacle will be a big reserved sacrament. And it would be normal for a Catholic to genuflect. Those of you that speak Latin or French will know that genou is something to do with your knees. And the standard way is to go down onto the right knee before the Blessed Sacrament, contained within the tabernacle on the altar. Left foot forward, right knee on the ground. And then, as you get a little bit older, you wonder if you're going to get up again. And the altar has in it a stone with 5 crosses on and a wax seal, because within the altar there will be some relics. I would need to do a lot of research to find out of whom the relics are in this altar. Very, very plain sort of windows for most of the church. Oh, the sun's in the wrong place for that, isn't it? But the thing that people come to this church to see is, or at least the tourists, some people come here to see God. Some people come here to see their mates and to chat, but tourists come here to see these wonderful, wonderful and very, very old murals and paintings. Angels playing, bagpipes. I don't see why an angel shouldn't play a bagpipe. Or, what's that, a 5-string lyre or something? Yeah, never thought of angels playing bagpipes. And across the buttresses there are other paintings. And on the walls, various ancient murals. Every time I come in this church, while I'm looking at all of the beauty, I do also tend to look at some of the building work that is needed if this church is to survive another 900 years. And the people of Paulnay are trying to raise funds to get some of this put right. What I might do when I sit down in front of the computer, I'll see if I can find the address where the appeal is based. But yes, as a building, it has a few issues going on. And if it's going to survive another 900 years, it will take the people of today a certain amount of effort to find ways of funding those repairs. But there we are. The Church of St Stephen, Paulnay.